Imagine you're in a courtroom. The air is thick with tension. A high-stakes case hangs in the balance, and the prosecution's star witness is about to take the stand. But this isn't just any witness. This is Sarah, a black woman whose testimony could either free an innocent man or condemn him. The defense attorney, a slick, overconfident man named Mr. Harrison, smirks. He sees Sarah, and in his eyes, she's an easy target, someone he can discredit and dismiss. He thinks he has this case in the bag. Couldn't be more wrong. This is the story of how one sentence from a woman everyone underestimated shattered a lawyer's arrogance and flipped an entire case on its head, proving that courage and truth are the most powerful forces in any room. The case was a complex one. A local community leader, a man named David Chen, was accused of embezzlement. The evidence was circumstantial. A messy trail of paperwork that the prosecution claimed pointed directly to him. David had always been a pillar of his community, running a non-profit that helped underprivileged youth. The accusations had shocked everyone. He maintained his innocence, insisting he was being framed. The real culprit, he claimed, was a disgruntled former employee who had a history of shady dealings. But without concrete proof, David's word was just that word against a mountain of confusing financial documents. The prosecution had built what they believed was an airtight case. It paraded a series of accountants and financial analysts, all of whom painted a grim picture. The defense, led by David's young, earnest lawyer, was struggling to poke holes in their narrative. The jury looked confused, overwhelmed by the jargon and numbers. It felt like the truth was getting buried under a pile of spreadsheets. Then, the prosecution announced their final witness, Sarah Johnson. Sarah had been David's longtime administrative assistant. She managed the schedules, handled the correspondence, and, crucially, she had a front-row seat to the daily operations of the nonprofit. She knew David not just as a boss, but as a person. The prosecution was calling her to confirm the timeline of certain financial transactions, hoping her testimony would be the final nail in the coffin. As Sarah walked towards the witness stand, you could feel a shift in the room. She was visibly nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she took the oath. Across the room, the defense attorney, Mr. Harrison, watched her with a predatory gaze. He whispered something to his junior associate and chuckled. He had a reputation for tearing witnesses apart on the stand, and he saw Sarah as his grand finale. He believed her nervousness was a sign of weakness, a crack he could exploit. The prosecutor began his questioning. It was dry, technical stuff. He asked Sarah to confirm dates, times, and the signing of various documents. Sarah answered each question quietly, but clearly. Her voice, though soft, was steady. She verified the documents she had personally handled, but when asked about the specific transactions David was accused of, she hesitated. I don't remember handling those specific papers, she said. The prosecutor pressed her, showing her documents with signatures that looked like David's. Do you recognize this signature? He asked. Sarah looked closely. It looks like his signature, she admitted. But something feels off. The prosecution finished, feeling they had gotten what they needed. The signatures were confirmed. In their minds, the case was closed. Now, it was Mr. Harrison's turn. He stood up, swaggering towards the witness stand. Ms. Johnson, he began, his voice dripping with condescension. You've worked for Mr. Chen for what, 10 years? 12 years, Sarah corrected him gently. Harrison waved his hand dismissively. Right. 12 years. A long time. You must be quite loyal to him. The implication was clear. Her loyalty was clouding her judgment. Harrison then launched into a series of rapid-fire questions, designed to confuse and intimidate her. He brought up old performance reviews, minor administrative errors from years ago, anything to paint her as incompetent and unreliable. Isn't it true, Ms. Johnson, that in 2018 you misplaced an important file for a week? He sneered. Yes, Sarah admitted. I was dealing with a family emergency at the time, but I located the file. But you did misplace it, Harrison shot back. A lapse in attention, wouldn't you say? He was building a narrative for the jury. This woman is forgetful. She's emotional. She can't be trusted. Sarah remained calm, answering each question honestly, refusing to be rattled, but you could see the toll it was taking. The jury was starting to look at her with doubt. Harrison sensed he was winning, decided to go for the kill. He walked right up to the witness stand, leaning in close. "Ms. Johnson, you said the signature looked like Mr. Chen's, but that something felt off. What exactly did you mean by that? Is this just another one of your feelings? Or maybe your loyalty is making you see things that aren't there?" He was mocking her, reducing her intuition to a flight of fancy, letting the question hang in the air. He then turned to the judge. "Your Honor, the witness is clearly unreliable. She's operating on vague feelings, not facts. I move to have her testimony dismissed." The courtroom was silent. David Chen slumped in his chair, his face a mask of despair. His own lawyer looked defeated. It seemed like it was all over. Sarah took a deep breath. All eyes were on her. She looked not at the smug attorney in front of her, but directly at the jury. The judge was about to speak to rule on the motion when Sarah's voice cut through the silence. It was no longer soft or hesitant. It was firm, clear, and filled with a power that no one in that room had expected. "He dots his I's with a tiny circle," she said. The entire courtroom froze. Mr. Harrison stopped dead in his tracks, his smirk vanishing. "What did you say?" he stammered, caught completely off guard. Sarah's eyes were locked on the jury. She spoke again, her voice resonating with 12 years of quiet observation. "For 12 years I have handled every piece of paper that man has signed. I've seen his signature on birthday cards for my children, on letters of recommendation, on thousands of documents. And on every single one, for 12 years, David Chen has dotted his I's with a tiny, perfect circle. Not a dot, circle." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. She then pointed a steady finger at the stack of incriminating documents on the prosecutor's table. "The signatures on those documents," she declared, her voice ringing with certainty, "have dots." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. It was a detail so small, so personal, that no forger would ever think to replicate it. It was a habit, an unconscious quirk known only to someone who had worked side by side with him for over a decade. It was the kind of truth that couldn't be found in a spreadsheet or a financial report. The prosecutor scrambled to the table, grabbing the documents and a magnifying glass. The jury members leaned forward in their seats, their eyes wide. Even the judge peered down from his bench, intrigued. Mr. Harrison stood there, speechless. His entire strategy had been to portray Sarah as an emotional, unreliable witness. But with one simple, factual observation, she had proven that she was the most observant person in the room. Her feeling wasn't a feeling at all. It was a fact, born from years of dedicated attention. She had exposed the forgery, and in doing so, destroyed the prosecution's entire case. The fallout was immediate. The documents were sent for forensic analysis, which confirmed Sarah's observation. The signatures were indeed forgeries. The investigation was reopened, and the focus quickly shifted to the disgruntled former employee, who, under pressure, confessed to framing David. David Chen was fully exonerated, his name cleared. He walked out of the courtroom a free man, embracing a crying Sarah in a hug that spoke volumes of gratitude. But the story doesn't end there. Sarah's moment of courage had a ripple effect that went far beyond the courtroom. Her story was a powerful reminder that every voice matters and that truth can come from the most unexpected places. She showed that you don't need a fancy degree or a powerful title to make a difference. Sometimes, all you need is to pay attention, to trust what you know, and to have the courage to speak up, even when you're afraid. Mr. Harrison's career, on the other hand, took a major hit. His dismissal of Sarah was seen as a classic case of arrogance and prejudice. He underestimated her because of who she was, and it cost him everything. This story is a testament to the power of quiet observation and the courage to speak truth to power. Sarah wasn't a lawyer or a detective. She was an administrative assistant. But her integrity, her attention to detail, and her refusal to be intimidated made her the most powerful person in that courtroom. She reminds us all that we have a unique perspective, that the details we notice matter. Never let anyone dismiss you or make you feel small. Your knowledge, your experience, your feeling might just be the one thing that changes everything. Hold on to your truth, and when the time comes, don't be afraid to share it with the world. You never know whose life you might change. Thanks for watching. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that celebrates the power of the human spirit.